When Prince Andrew was reportedly told to leave Royal Lodge, insiders say his response was blunt. "I'm the Queen's second son. You can't do this to me." This came from a man whose guests bypassed palace security without vetting, whose decade-long friendship with a convicted sex offender went unchallenged, and whose one television interview obliterated what credibility he had left. The fall began years earlier with the people he let through the door. In May 1997, Prince Andrew's name appeared on the manifest of Jeffrey Epstein's private jet, traveling from Palm Beach to London. That flight, logged as tail number N90A-E, was only the first documented link in a chain that would quietly tie the Duke of York to Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell for more than a decade. By the early 2000s, their social overlap was so routine that Maxwell, sometimes described by staff as a gatekeeper, moved through palace corridors with a freedom that raised eyebrows among the Royal Protection Unit. Inside Buckingham Palace, security rules were meant to be absolute. Every visitor, royal or not, was supposed to be logged and vetted by the Metropolitan Police. Yet, according to former protection officer Paul Page, those protocols began to beauty. Page later recalled, police were not allowed to record the names of Andrew's female guests on official logs. He described being told to keep quiet, adding, "The letter was trying to say, in the nicest possible terms, can you shut up?" Escort logs from the period, obtained through Freedom of Information requests, showed blank entries for private meetings, with only Prince Andrew, private meeting written, and no visitor names attached. Internal memos flagged these as unusual access patterns, but the warnings went unheeded. Page and his colleagues even joked about the volume of guests, saying, "We used to have a joke that he should have a revolving door in his bedroom." Maxwell's presence became so regular that staff stopped questioning it. She arrived unescorted, bypassing the checks that applied to everyone else. The protection officers, sidelined by senior aides and overridden by formal memos, watched as the standard escort-only rule fell away. Page would later voice his deeper concern. How do we know these unknown females weren't attached to hostile foreign countries? The risks extended far beyond gossip. When Epstein was convicted in Florida in 2008 for procuring a minor for prostitution, the palace's visitor logs showed no adjustment to Andrew's guest list or to Maxwell's access. The system, designed to protect the monarchy, had become porous by design. The consequences of that complacency would not be fully understood until years later, when private travel logs and internal warnings gave way to public scandal. Jeffrey Epstein's arrest in July 2019 sent shockwaves through the highest levels of power. The headlines were impossible to ignore. A convicted sex offender now facing new federal charges, with a social circle that reached into the heart of the British royal family. Within weeks, Epstein was found dead in his jail cell, officially ruled a suicide. But the questions did not stop. Instead, they grew louder, and Prince Andrew's name was suddenly everywhere. Virginia Giuffre stepped forward in public, alleging that Andrew had sexually abused her when she was just 17, trafficked by Epstein. Her claims, laid out in detail in United States court filings, described an encounter in 2001 in London and 2 others in New York and the Virgin Islands. The palace issued denials, but the pressure was relentless. For years, rumors had swirled. Now, the accusations were on record, and the world was watching. Against this backdrop, Prince Andrew agreed to a televised interview with BBC Newsnight presenter Emily Maitlis. The decision would prove catastrophic. Over nearly an hour, Andrew tried to explain his relationship with Epstein and respond to Giuffre's allegations. He insisted he had no recollection of ever meeting Virginia Giuffre. When shown the now infamous photograph of himself with Giuffre and Ghislaine Maxwell, he said he had absolutely no memory of that photo ever being taken. He offered a medical explanation for his inability to sweat, saying he did not sweat at the time because he had suffered what he would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War. The public's response was immediate. Polls released days after the broadcast showed Andrew's favorability rating plummeting from 34% to just 14%, the sharpest drop for any royal in modern polling. Social media erupted with disbelief and anger. Commentators called it a train wreck and a public relations disaster. The press seized on every detail, the awkward denials, the lack of empathy for Epstein's victims, and the repeated insistence that Andrew's behavior had been above reproach. By the end of the week, the damage was irreversible. Sponsors withdrew from the prince's charities. Organizations distanced themselves. Inside the palace, the sense of crisis was clear. The Newsnight interview, intended as a defense, had instead turned rumor into global outrage. For Prince Andrew, there would be no return to business as usual. In May 2020, Buckingham Palace issued a terse statement. Prince Andrew would not return to public duties. The announcement, brief and unmistakable, ended his official role as the Queen's second son. Charities and military regiments quietly removed his name. Invitations to royal events stopped arriving. The Duke of York, once a fixture at ceremonies and parades, was now absent from the public stage, his duties suspended indefinitely. Legal pressure mounted. In January 13, 2022, Virginia Giuffre filed a civil lawsuit in the Southern District of New York, case number 1:22-CV-01815, alleging Andrew had sexually abused her in 2001 and 2006 after she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. The complaint named dates, locations, and the Duke himself. Andrew's lawyers denied the allegations and sought dismissal, citing jurisdiction and the statute of limitations. The court allowed the main claims to proceed, setting the stage for a possible public trial. On January 13, 2022, the palace acted again. With the Queen's approval, Andrew's military affiliations and royal patronages were returned to the monarch. He lost the right to use His Royal Highness in any official sense. The message was clear: the institution was distancing itself, stripping away his remaining connections in a single public move. As the lawsuit advanced, negotiations began behind closed doors. In February 2022, Andrew and Giuffre reached a settlement. The reported sum, over £12 million, was never officially confirmed, but the agreement included a key phrase: without any admission of liability or wrongdoing. The case was dismissed with prejudice, closing the legal chapter but leaving reputational damage. In September 2022, Queen Elizabeth II died. Her passing removed Andrew's last shield. King Charles III finalized the withdrawal of his remaining status. With the Queen gone, the consequences, loss of titles, public disgrace, and financial cost were Andrew's alone. The cascade was complete. Stripped of roles, isolated from the monarchy, and left to face the aftermath. King Charles III moved quickly to redraw the boundaries of royal privilege. In June 2023, a formal household memo released under the Freedom of Information Act reassigned every remaining duty once attached to Andrew. The document, dry in its language but absolute in effect, listed each patronage and ceremonial role, then assigned them to other working royals. There was no ambiguity. The palace's intent was unmistakable. Andrew's official life had ended. Yet one privilege remained: a 30,000-square-foot mansion in Windsor Great Park. Royal Lodge, a sprawling estate with a Grade 2 listing, had served as Andrew's sanctuary since 2004. Under the terms of a lease signed in 2015, he paid no rent, but the annual upkeep was steep. The Sovereign Grant Report for 2023 to 2024 put maintenance costs at £400,000 a year, funded through a mix of Crown Estate income and Andrew's shrinking private allowance. For years, the arrangement drew quiet resentment within the family and open criticism from the press. The property, once a symbol of status, became a lightning rod for questions about fairness and accountability. As the monarchy recalibrated under Charles, the financial logic of the arrangement grew harder to defend. The sovereign grant's revised budget slashed Andrew's allocation by more than 2/3, dropping from £1.5 million to £500,000. The message was clear: the era of royal indulgence, at least for Andrew, was over. Insiders described tense meetings, with Andrew insisting the lease was ironclad and that his position as the Queen's son guaranteed his right to remain. But Charles, determined to protect the Crown's credibility, pressed forward. In October 2025, an eviction notice arrived from the Crown Estate, citing breach of the maintenance covenant. The Sun reported Andrew's response: "I'm the Queen's second son, and I will not be evicted from my home." The standoff at Royal Lodge was more than a private dispute. It exposed the final unraveling of inherited privilege in the face of institutional survival. With the monarchy's reputation on the line, even birthright was no longer a shield. The question hung in the air: did Andrew truly believe his lineage could protect him, or was this the last protest of a man with nothing left to bargain? The answer, for the House of Windsor, would define the boundaries of power in a new royal era. Today, no royal title shields anyone from scrutiny. The monarchy faces a world less willing to overlook privilege or secrecy, regardless of bloodline. Whether Andrew's words were conviction or desperation, the institution he relied on now stands judged by its response. Entitlement meets its reckoning. Public trust demands nothing less.